What's up, people? My name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, currently ranking and reviewing the Deep Purple albums. This is the 21 studio album, started at number 21. Broke them up into tiers just to make these videos a little shorter and more manageable. And we are currently at number 12. So we covered 21 through 13 in the C tier and B tier lists. This is the A tier portion of the list from number 12 all the way up to whenever this video stops. I'm not going to give away the ending. These are all great albums, in my opinion. Obviously, all of this is my opinion, so frame your comments and disagreements in opinion fashion, since that's what this is. Yeah, I'm sure there will be some disagreements. This is where I do maybe deviate from what I think is sort of the established norm of Deep Purple. But anyways, that's the fun of these videos, right? So anyways, these are all great albums, not perfect, otherwise they would be S tier, but solid, great, at times epic albums nonetheless. So yeah, here we go. That's enough. You can watch C and B tier if you want to know more about my thoughts on Deep Purple or more about how we got here under Frank Zappa's Big Note. But there was a smoke on the water, and there was some fire in the sky. But that's it. I'm going to stop yapping, and we're going to get right into number 12, the first of the A tier albums. Number 12, The Battle Rages On. This came out in 1993. It is the final Mark of the Mark II reunion albums, making their total number of studio albums at 7, right? So we had the 4 in the 70s and then the 3 in sort of the reunion era of the 80s and then all now 93. After House of the Blue Light Tour, Ian Gillan was fired. Joe Lynn Turner came on board. They did an album, which has already been on this list, was way down in the C tier. And then they fired, I'm assuming it was Blackmore, fired Joe Lynn Turner. Gillan came back. This is their last album together. Blackmore then quit after this album, and Steve Morse joined on board. I think this is a great album. Part of that may be personal. It was the last Deep Purple album I bought sort of in real time. I had bought Perfect Strangers, bought House of Light when it came out, bought this when it came out, bought the Horrible Slaves and Masters when it came out. And then I sort of checked out. Like, I kind of just didn't care when Steve Morse joined the band because Richie Blackmore was not there. And it wasn't until I found Bananas for like $3.99 at like a truck stop. I think we were driving back from California to Texas, which is like a solid 24-hour drive. And they had the like little cheap cassettes in a truck stop. I bought Bananas for like $3.99 and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. This was like maybe 10 years after this came out. But then I went back and checked out the first 2 Steve Morse albums and kind of found my love for the sort of last 2 Mark 7 and Mark 8 bands. But anyways, this is a really solid album. But my point was, I listened to this album a lot from like 93 for like the next 10 years without there being any new Deep Purple. Even though they were making new music, this was the only music I was listening to. I think there's really only 2 bad tracks on this album. The second track, Lick It Up, is just kind of an uninteresting groove, an uninteresting riff. It's got a really good guitar solo. It's like some solo. The really good solo in it, again, I can't remember what it is. I think it's a guitar solo that kind of saves it, but it's kind of forgettable. And then the second to last track, Solitaire, I also think is kind of forgettable. But everything else in between is really good. The lead-off track hits hard. It's kind of a little all over the place. There's a nice little prog jam in it. Talk About Love is a really good Guns N' Roses vibe. What is Twist in the Tail has a kind of sounds like Twisty and has a very driving, almost like Motorhead driving type feel to it. And then there is the absolutely epic Anya, which is just this. I think it's the longest one. It's like 6.5 minutes long. It has, on almost every album after Perfect Strangers, there's a song that has a Perfect Strangers type like drive to it, like a Kashmir, Perfect Strangers, just that like almost symphonic type forward movement. This is that song on the album. On this album, it's a little bit slower, a little more I guess melodramatic, but just the groove, everything. I consider this, everything about it works perfectly. There's in the lyrics, there's reference to a gypsy. I know we're not supposed to use that word anymore. It is pejorative. The people that we refer to it as that don't want to be called that. But I'm only going to bring it up this once because there's another album on Perfect Strangers, A Blank Kiss, and then there's a fantastic song on Stormbringer, the and G word. I always think of those as like a trilogy, and this is a very good ending to that sort of threesome of songs. A word they were very fond of using. So unfortunately, time has made that have a different meaning. But anyways, please don't get into that in the comments. Let my politics stand. However, it's my video, goddammit. Somebody's gonna comment it on my what did the last guy call me when I did not want to say NBiz? Called me a snowflake. So yeah, if you need to call me a snowflake, do it. But I'm just not going to use the word other than the one time, which I apologize for. But anyways, sorry for that lengthy diversion. But anyways, Time to Kill is a great song. Time to Kill, I think, if AOR, if album oriented rock was still like not classic rock in 93, because I think by 93 it was starting to go into classic rock, I do think Time to Kill could have been a very popular, often requested song. And it's a very good intro, has some really good sort of somewhat generic but not like lyrics about, I don't know, doing the right thing. Ramshackle Man is a beast, a beast. Blackmore quit after this album, and I don't know why. Just listen to Ramshackle Man. It is a bluesy take in which Blackmore is just going off for like 5.5 minutes. Like almost the entire thing is hit with licks and riffs and solos, and yeah, I think there's a little Lord solo in there. But yeah, no man, this is a phenomenal, phenomenal album. Like maybe not phenomenal, not S tier, but it's a really good album. Two admittedly weak spots. The last track, One Man's Meat, despite having a very Deep Purple Galian title, and that's also kind of a snoozer. But yeah, a solid A tier album. My number 12, The Battle Rages On. Number 11, Infinite. This came out in 2017. It was the sixth of the Steve Morris era, the fourth of the Don Airey Steve Morris era. Kind of like A Battle Rages On, it hits pretty consistently from song to song, maybe one, maybe 2 week tracks, if that, but varied in its sort of musical template. You got some Led Zeppelin flavors going on here. Definitely a little proggy, a little heavier. They're definitely leaning into their heaviness on this album. They even got some sort of indulgent silliness. The opening track, Time for Bedlam, which hits hard when it finally hits, opens up with like a calmer Black Blade from BOC, that ending kind of warm with the altered voice effect. It's not as extreme as that, but like Ian Gillan does a little like pre-song narrating to set up the song, which I don't think is necessary because once the song hits, it hits hard. And then there's a little more weird spoken word stuff towards the end on Top of the World, which as a song apart from the weird spoken word stuff reminds me of maybe because it's almost the exact same title, but does remind me of Cheap Trick at times. But yeah, it's just a great album. Opener, Time for Bedlam is great. Hip Boots, I don't like the initial sort of retro vibe that it has, or I don't know what it is. But the jam, when they finally get into like the meat of it and the jam, it's completely redeems it. All I Got Is You, All I Got Is You has a nice slower vibe. That works very well. One Night in Vegas, a great Ian Gillan kind of story song with a great groove to it. The Surprising is one of those songs that has sort of a quiet, builds up to sort of a louder, jammy, and then back to quiet. Kind of a very Child in Time type template, only this one ends again with a crazy jam at the end. Johnny's Band, a typical storytelling song about people who join a band and then they break up and what happens to them afterwards, but it's got good energy. And Birds of Prey, which I kind of consider the last track on the album. There is one after this, but it ends it with a very, very indulgent prog. The only song that I don't think is worth it is there is a cover of Roadhouse Blues, which they approach from a completely different angle, so it doesn't start off with that awesome dun, 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 opening riff. They kind of ease into that riff. Again, just an unnecessary cover. Blue Oyster Cult did it on Extraterrestrial Live, and that is for me the only other alternative version of this song that I will accept. I'm that way, but yeah, just an unnecessary cover. Do it live, that's great. It does not need to be on the album, but yeah, other than that, a solid Steve Morse, Don Airey era album. Number 11, Infinite. Number 10, Bananas. Let's talk about that album cover first. This came out in 2003. I'm not sure what internet, I mean, I forget. I don't need to remember what internet technology was back in 2003. But I imagine that what happened was they were like, what are you going to call the name of the album, your new album? And they're like, Bananas. And somebody, it seemed like somebody just went on the internet, Googled, image searched bananas. This popped up and they said, hey, how about this? Because this is a phenomenal album cover that is random at its most best. But yeah, this is a solid album. It has arguably, I wouldn't even say arguably, it may have flat out the worst song Deep Purple has ever recorded, Razzle Dazzle. And again, it has a really good jam in it. The instrumentation is kind of fun, but the chorus, razzle dazzle, call it what it's just, it's pretty bad. It's, I don't even know what band to compare it to because I'm not sure many bands would sing a song like this. It just seems like maybe a community theater musical of some sort. Razzle dazzle. It's just, yeah, it's pretty bad. But at this point in time, I have to say it just works because the entire album is fun. It's got some serious jams. The opening House of Pain is a serious jam. It's got this epic, the sort of Perfect Strangers epic song, and this one is something called Walk On that is just has so much swag to it, but it's so slow and kind of patient. Ridiculous song. The title track has some really good Ian Gillan lyrics, kind of a reference to Alice in Wonderland, just some kind of really good stuff in it. Oh, and even that razzle dazzle. After you are like blown away by just how incredibly cheesy and bad the chorus is, there's this weird little section where Ian Gillan like just spits out all these lines like really quickly before not going back to the chorus, but before going into this pretty interesting solo section. So even that horrible song is actually pretty good. So House of Pain, Sun Goes Down is amazing, just hits hard. Haunted, kind of a cheesy little song, but it's got just this really memorable chorus. Haunted, is that what you wanted? I can't sing, but it's like, I don't know, it's a little cheesy. It's got some really nice slide work in it, but just a beautiful song. And then Doing It Tonight, the second to last song, which take the lyrics and doing it tonight, yeah, has this just this groove that's kind of like what I don't even know what it is. It's a very like Copacabana showgirls type dune type. You could see Barry Manilow up there singing like something to this kind of jam, but with Ian Gillan's just ridiculous lyrics, it works so perfectly. Like another album that's soon going to be on this list, I'm not sure you would necessarily call this a great hard rock album, but it's a great album. And there are moments that hit hard like hard rock should, but then there are moments where a lot of other things are happening, and some of them deliciously cheesy. An underrated album, like, but well worth checking out. And I would argue by far, not by far, by one spot on this list, the best thing the Steve Morse era and Don Airey era band has done. So anyways, yeah, number 10, Bananas. Number 9, The House of Blue Light. This came out in 1987. This is the second of the Mark II reunion albums of the three they would make. And this contains, I would say, the second half of this album, side B, is a near perfect side of music for any era of Deep Purple. I just think the songs on the second side are sequenced perfectly. They're kind of enough varied landscape to make it interesting. Just an utterly almost perfect side of music. Unfortunately, on the first side, the opening two tracks I think are really strong. Bad Attitude has a neat little, they're messing around with song structure a little bit, having fun with that. And then The Unwritten Law just has Ian Pace in the rhythm section, just like utterly destroying the scenery. It's a phenomenal song. But then the next three songs, Call of the Wild, Mad Dog, and Black and White are kind of forgettable. They have their moments, they have their riffs. Some of them are kind of good, but ultimately I think they're kind of forgettable. But then the second half of this album, oh my gosh. Hard Lovin' Woman, which I love because that sort of ties us back to Hard Lovin' Man from In Rock. So there's that like, that paying homage to your earlier versions of your Mark II self. I like that sort of continuation of that story. The Spanish Archer, which I think is one of the best songs Deep Purple has ever recorded. It just has a really funky groove. The lyrics are mysteriously don't make sense, but might make perfect sense. Who knows? It's Ian Gillan at his most like sort of indecipherable but enjoyable best. Strange Ways, which has a great groove to it, kind of flirts with that Perfect Strangers territory, but a little more upbeat. Mitzi Dupree, an amazing story song by Gillan. I've always thought of this as sort of a cousin to Strange Kind of Woman. It's a tale about a woman named Mitzi Dupree. You know, obviously he's attracted to her, but the best part of the song is that the chorus is that he always wanted a woman or a girl with not that was like Mitzi Dupree, but with a name like Mitzi Dupree, which I think was a great little twist right there. And then the closing song, which you figure like, you know, it's just been a good almost like 45 plus minutes of just really good hard rock. They just like, again, just Dead or Alive. They just like metal to the pedal, pedal to the metal. They just hit it hard and go out with like a blaze of glory. Just a phenomenal side of music. Again, the first two songs are pretty strong. There's three songs, 3 through 5, I think are forgettable. Kind of weighs this down to the 9 spot, but that second side, man, it's good. I think everybody sounds good. There are some 80s production problems. It sounds like an 80s hard rock album, but if you can overlook the 80s-ness of it, I think this is a really, really strong listen and a strong follow-up to Perfect Strangers. Number, whatever number this is, number 9, House of Blue Light. Number 8, Burn. I know this is not a popular opinion. I know this album is usually ranked a lot higher than especially the other two albums from this era. So this is after Who Do You Think We Are? Who Do We Think We Are? Gillan and Glover left the band, and in one fell swoop, they not only replaced both of them, but they also added a vocalist. So David Coverdale became sort of the lead main vocalist, while Glenn Hughes on bass kind of also became the lead vocalist. And there were songs when they would both sing, and a couple songs where they only sang, but they complemented each other extremely well. They made 3 albums, 2 with Blackmore, and then Blackmore left after the second one, and then Tommy Bolin came on board. And usually this is ranked as the highest of the 3 albums. And if I were ranking these on the basis of being a hard rock album, I think this is the best of the 3 as far as hard rock goes. This is essentially hard rock from start to finish, bluesy, very very David Coverdale-ish. Even though Glenn Hughes is a phenomenal singer, I just think Coverdale very much dominates the sound of this, and the sound of his voice and just that energy he brings, I think he kind of pervades throughout this album. It's got some great solos, some great playing. John Lord steps up and has some amazing moments. But personally, as solid as it is as a hard rock album, I do think the other 2 albums are better, though they aren't better because of hard rock. They're better because they're funkier. I like some of the melodies a little bit better. I think the melodies are stronger on the other ones. And so this, to me, has one phenomenal, all-time great classic Deep Purple song in Burn. Everything else, including Mistreated, a song that David Coverdale loves so much that I think he even did it like every show that Whitesnake did, as sort of his like, I'm going to scream the lid off this mother, sing the lid off this mother. I don't even think Mistreated. I think Mistreated is a little too long and has one too many breaks where Coverdale jumps in and lifts it up. I think I think it needed a little more solos. I think the best part of Mistreated actually is Coverdale gives a great vocal performance, no denying that. But that really kind of slow solo part in the middle, I think Blackmore's on slide, and it's kind of just takes its time, and kind of you can feel the pain that Coverdale's singing about. That solo section is ridiculous. And the song is really good, but I just don't think it's as good as stuff that is on other albums. And it is a great hard rock album. It does have its funky moments. It does have its prog moments. It does have some great guitar solos. That one song, You Fool No One, reminds me of some like 70s rock act, and I can't really put my finger on it, but there's a lot on here that reminds me kind of other bands. But yeah, A solid album. Oh, and Lay Down, Stay Down, that riff, I think they stole that riff for Nobody's Home for the Perfect Strangers album. They just kind of modified that a little. So yeah, really, really solid album. Obviously an A tier album. Some really, really good hard rock. But I personally think it's the weakest of the Coverdale Hughes era. Just because it's kind of lacking in a little bit of the melodic hook that the other two have and some of the fun that I think the other two have. But again, a solid album. It's number 8 out of 21. It's A tier all the way. Burn came out in 1973 by Deep Purple, right? 73? 74. Recorded in 73. Came out in early 74. Yeah, Burn, Deep Purple, number 8. Number 7, Stormbringer. This was the follow up to Burn, the last album before Blackmore would leave, before returning in the 80s. He left because the band was getting too funky, and there are some really good funky moments on this album. Truly, what is it? You Can't Do It Right with the One You Love? Yeah, super funky. There's also a lot of, I wouldn't even call this a hard rock album, despite having what I think are two of Deep Purple's best songs and are definitely hard rock classics. The title track, which despite having one of the cheesiest keyboard sounds ever within like the first 10 seconds, manages to overcome that flawed start and become just a brilliant hard rock classic. And then a song I referred to earlier, which I will only call The G, complain about all you want, is one of Deep Purple's best songs ever. That riff, that driving riff that they just dun 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 dun, whatever that is, I can't sing, but man, I think that is one of the most like just that is one of the best riffs. I mean, this is a guy who wrote Smoke on the Water and Burn and all this crazy stuff. That G riff, phenomenal. Yeah, call me out on that. But other than that, an album that is not a hard rock album. I think it's a 70s rock album. There are definitely sort of some Steely Dan, early Can't Buy a Thrill flavors in here. There's definitely some Leonard Skinner, not necessarily their southern rock part, but more of their songwriting and the way they would work with melody. I hear a little Leonard Skinner in here. I hear a little Doobie Brothers in here, for whatever you make of that. Hold On. Every time I hear Hold On, I'm like, was this not a hit song? Because that chorus is so radio friendly for the 70s. Just an amazing song. So yeah, it's not a hard rock album. This is not a great hard rock album. This is a great 70s rock album with two of the greatest hard rock songs ever. So yeah, I think it's better than Burn. I think it's more entertaining than Burn from start to finish. I think it has more flavors that it's offering up. I'm not going to call it disco, but there's a little dance energy early on Love Don't Mean a Thing. What else do we have? Yeah, that Steely Dan vibes. And then some amazing solos, especially Blackmore solo and Lady Double Dealer. But again, yeah, man, I think this is song for song a better album than Burn. But not a better hard rock album. So it's also like, this is another thing. I almost wish like, when Gillan and Glover left Deep Purple after Who Do We Think We Are, I wish at that point Blackmore had started a new band. Also, Stormbringer has, in the chorus, there's a very dominant line, or in the bridge before the chorus, about a rainbow. So I'm assuming this is where he took the name for his next band. But I wish it was at this point that Blackmore had started a new band and that this wasn't Deep Purple, but that maybe this was Rainbow, or this was something else, or maybe this was, I don't know. Because Coverdale and Hughes is a like singing duo is a phenomenal idea. They're both incredible, and Hughes is also an amazing bass player. You still have a Lord and Pace from Deep Purple, but that's fine. Give it another name. Like let's be bands that have multiple side projects. Like if this had happened now, I think bands are a lot more comfortable, or members of bands are a lot more comfortable in being in different bands and not like fighting for ownership of that name. Back then, obviously for marketing reasons or who knows what, you wanted the Deep Purple name. But I think that maybe if they had become their own band, we would look at these albums after Burn in a different light, especially Come Taste the Band, and maybe they would have continued on longer because they could have alternated making albums with Deep Purple, or I don't know. I just wish This is a really good album. I'm not sure it's a really good Deep Purple album, but it's a really good album for 70s rock. Stormbringer, 1974. Yeah, my number 7. Number 6, Who Do We Think We Are? This came out in 1973. This was the last album of the original run of the Mark II lineup, the classic Deep Purple lineup. When I make my top 10 Deep Purple songs video, my love for this album will be more fully explained by where I place a woman from Tokyo on that list. I think it is the best opening track of any Deep Purple album. I think it might be one of the best opening tracks of any album. The first 45 to 50 seconds of that song is near perfect. The way like Pace starts off with like with the just playing the hi-hat, and then he hits like the just that single bass drum, and then Blackmore comes in with like the main riff, and then Lord answers him on the organ, and then Glover starts dropping these notes, and there's this like almost like give and take where it's bam, bam, and they go back and forth until Blackmore just hits that just crazy little chord, distorted, freaked out, bent chord, and then they go into the song proper. That opening is so good that I will listen to this album over and over and over again just to hear that first song. And then they drop into like that psych folk weirdness in the middle that just like, instead of funking it up, they kind of lay it down and get psyche and dreamy, and it's a perfect song. Mary Long. So this album, I think there's about a handful of great tracks, but then there's a couple tracks which kind of take a while to get to the good parts, and so maybe that's why it's as far down as number 6. But anyways, Mary Long is a great song about sort of a another connection to Frank Zappa, a Society Pages type woman, not necessarily in a small town, but somebody who kind of comments on the mores and manners of society, and wags her finger despite having skeletons in her closet. It's a fun little song. Super Trooper and Smooth Dancer, which close out side A, are kind of straightforward, typical hard rock songs. Not too great, but the band sounds good. I think the solos are good. Rat Bat Blue, I love. I think that is one of their funkiest things. Ian Pace is ridiculous all over this. Place and Line is a nice bluesy jam, has some really good playing in it. And Our Lady has a very 70s album ending, almost straightforward rock type of uplifting type vibe. I don't know. I think it's a solid, really great album. I understand why people don't like it as much, but I do think like that first track, man, Woman from Tokyo, is so darn perfect. I just think that's an amazing song. And the playing on this is good. The funk on Rat Bat Blue is ridiculous. Yeah, man, it's a great album. It's one of those I listen to a lot, probably only because I don't get up and turn it off after I listen to Woman from Tokyo. But because I've done that for so long, I've learned to absolutely love this album. So don't come hating on my, I don't even know what it's called, Who Do We Think We Are? Don't come hating on this album. Number 6. Number 5, Perfect Strangers. This came out in 1984. I really, really, really wanted to make this an S tier album, but instead it is merely number 5. It is like an A++. There is one track on here, Mean Streak, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think it's a bad track. It's just average. So I had to, in good conscience, prevent it from being an S tier album. This is the last of the A tier albums. After this, the 4 remaining ones I do think are near perfect creations. But yeah, so yeah, Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. This came out in 1984. It was the first Deep Purple album I owned. I bought it on the basis of hearing Perfect Strangers, that song. Really, there's definitely not a bad song on here, and there were a handful of phenomenal songs. Knocking on Your Back Door, another incredible album opener where you have each band member coming in one by one, and then before you just roll into the just ridiculous groove that gets laid down. Some amazing Ian Gillan lyrics. You got Under the Gun, Nobody's Home, which I think they stole the lick from Lay Down, Stay Down and kind of modified it for this, but that's okay. They both work. Perfect Strangers, your Kashmir inspired type, just perfect little number. A G's Kiss. Yeah, you've been watching. Wasted Sunsets, a more ballady type thing for Gillan to shine. And Hungry Days, which is just a really fun, upbeat, it has a great little groove in it, and then also has a reference to Smoke on the Water, which is awesome. That, you know, again, they've reformed. They're back after being gone for like over a decade, and they even make a reference to the previous versions of themselves. Yeah, it sounds 80s. There are some 80s flaws that are exposed, but I think the music easily overcomes any of that. And this is just a hard hitting, hard rock, really good Deep Purple album with a variety of different flavors to keep things interesting. Phenomenal playing by all band members involved. Again, this is the reunion album of the Mark II lineup. So, you know, this is the five members that did sort of three of the albums that are in my top four. Just a phenomenal group of musicians. And this almost S tier, but just missed it because Mean Streak, I think, is just a little too middle of the road. Other than that, just a great album. My number five and the last of the A tier, Perfect Strangers. Right, people, and that's it for the A tier albums. S tier will be coming soon. Let me know why I'm wrong about my opinions and why my taste in music should be drastically different. Let me know what your favorites are. Let me know. You know how comments work. We're all adults here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, if you made it this far and you want to give me some input about live albums, because I don't quite know, like there's more live albums than studio albums, like if we truly count all the stuff that you can easily find out there without even tracking down, you know, boots and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't even know how to approach the live albums, but I want to at some point. So if you have suggestions, whether or not I should just do all 30 plus of them or what, yeah, give me some advice on the live album thing if you care. If you don't care, don't, because that's the way these comments work. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace. Take care, y'all. It's going to be like 104 any minute now here in San Antonio, so go find another room to pass out in. All right, thanks for watching. Bye. Subscribe.